Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and it's time to talk about my favorite movies of 2019. Now, as with all these Best of the Year videos that I always do, I didn't get to see every movie that came out last year. In fact, there's some pretty big ones that I missed. I know the biggest one being 1917, which just got a wide release this weekend. And the reason why I'm not putting off this video and seeing that is because, there's a snowstorm going on right now. So I'm going to get around to seeing that whenever I can. So on to my honorable mention, which is only really an honorable mention because this movie technically came out in 2018, but it didn't get a wide release or didn't start playing in any theaters near me until 2019, so I technically saw it in 2019. So just an honorable mention for They Shall Not Grow Old, which is a jaw-dropping documentary and a technical achievement with how Peter Jackson was able to take this old, dirty footage, clean it up, colorize it, add in all this audio and sync up even the people's voice mouths with what they probably were saying, and dubbing in all this dialogue and just making you really feel like you're there on the battlefield with these soldiers. It was insane and intense at times. And it really gives you a great insight on what it was like on the front lines in World War I. Like I said, it's an amazing documentary. I can't recommend this enough. And if I'd seen this last year or in 2018, it would have been on my list, definitely, because it is such an amazing, unique, and different type of documentary that is awesome. So now moving on to my actual list. Now, I have more than 10 movies on the list, so it's going to be not a top 10, more of a top 12. And as I've mentioned before in my other videos, I don't really like ranking stuff. I always have a hard time, picking something over another thing, especially when they're totally different types of movies. So, really, the ranking doesn't matter, except for my number one, which is my number one favorite movie of the year. The rest of the list is interchangeable. It's just kind of there to give the video structure, if that makes any sense. So don't really take the rankings into account. Don't be like, oh wait, you like that one better than that one. Not really. They're all my favorite of the year. So starting with number 12. This is another documentary that covers one of the most historic achievements in America's history that had its 50th anniversary in 2019, and that is Apollo 11. This is an amazing documentary that really immerses you into the whole Apollo 11 mission, especially with how it uses never-before-seen 70mm footage from the space shuttle launch, which looked incredible on the big screen. It looked like it was shot today. That's how good of quality it was. But what I love about it is that it's not a typical documentary where you have people talking about the events and everything. It actually takes all the footage, everything from the mission control to inside the space shuttle and everything, and strings it along like a narrative and makes it play out like a movie almost. And it really, like I said, engrosses you into the mission. It just shows you how insane this was and how much of an achievement it was to do this with the technology they had back then and just the insane trajectory and how they were gonna spin, go around the moon and do all this kind of stuff. This movie really emphasizes that and really shows you how intense it was and how groundbreaking it was, everything they did, and it's so well put together and just an engrossing movie-like documentary that's so worth seeing. Number 11. He may have stumbled a bit on his last film that he wrote and directed, which I know is kind of a light way of saying that, but Rian Johnson made up for it with Knives Out. A just fun, clever, hilarious murder mystery that murder mysteries are always fun, they're always entertaining, but this movie is very cleverly written, has really good characters, has a great cast. The best thing is that Rian Johnson assembled this incredible cast of all-stars who are all fantastic and quirky and fun, and this movie was just really entertaining, and I like how it kind of played with the whodunit genre because it reveals something to you very early on in the movie that you think should be a major twist in the film, and so you're left with the rest of the film what's gonna happen next, because you feel like you had the big information revealed, but it keeps adding more and more layers and revealing more and more stuff to where you don't exactly know where it's gonna go as the movie progresses. So I thought that was really unique, that was really surprising, and yeah, this movie was just very entertaining, you know, it was just a lot of fun, and that's the best thing about it. Like I said, the cast is great, the script is really sharp, really clever. I love Daniel Craig in this movie. He was fantastic, playing just such a different type of role than he usually plays. Like, he's playing the southern private detective, and he's fantastic. He has some of the best like lines in the movie, some of the best like monologues in the movie come from him. Number 10. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to put this movie on this list, but I came to the realization that this movie came out back in April, and I feel like every couple of months or so since then, I've either thought about it or I brought it up in conversation, and I'm like, you know, that's a good sign of a movie if I keep bringing it up since I saw it all those months ago, and that is Shazam. The first DCEU movie to make a best of the year list for me, and probably the last one I ever expected to, but this movie, it just works. This movie, it just brings the joy of being a superhero, and it's just a ton of fun. It's very genuine. It has this genuine Richard Donner Superman or Sam Raimi Spider-Man vibe to it that just works. And it's really funny, it's really entertaining. It doesn't aspire to be anything big or grander than what it is, but also when it tries to do serious moments, they really work and you actually really feel them. So it's just a lot of really good elements to it. Some random horror elements thrown in there, like thank you David Sandberg for bringing your horror background into here. And it was just like a ton of fun. Like, I think this is my favorite movie of the DCEU. I feel like it's the one that's the most structurally well, like all the way through. It doesn't have like problems like Wonder Woman, where that one had the third act problem. I feel like Shazam, all 3 acts works. That's why I think it's like the best one. And like I said, it doesn't get bloated or anything. It doesn't go too far with the like big effect action sequences. It's a smaller scale movie, and that really works to its advantage. And like I said, it's really funny. Like the montages of Shazam learning what his powers are and everything, it just brings a smile to my face whenever I think about it. There's just so many funny moments I like bringing up, so many great lines and everything. And I just had a lot of fun with it. It just kind of like was a breath of fresh air from like the big, bloated comic book movies. It's just great to have a smaller scale movie that was just genuine and just genuinely fun. Number 9. A movie that surprisingly bombed at the box office for having these huge connections to, you know, Stephen King, and also being a sequel to one of the greatest horror films of all time, Dr. Sleep. I thought this movie was fantastic. Mike Flanagan knocked it out of the park. He made a sequel to, like I said, one of the greatest, most iconic horror films of all time. And the fact that it turned out this good is so surprising. Like, I'm not saying I thought the movie was ever going to be bad, but the fact that it turned out this good is crazy. Like I mentioned in my review, the only real issues I have with the movie is that the third act does kind of get bogged down in Shining references and a lot of fan service. Like, I feel like it didn't need it as much as it did, because the first 2 acts are really its own story. It really doesn't have a whole lot of connections to The Shining except for it being about Danny Torrance, and there's a couple of little things here and there that tie in there, but it's really its own story, and I loved all of that. I loved kind of the slow burn that the movie had. I loved the like really serious kind of like sad tone it had with like Danny Torrance trying to put his life back together after just like spending all these years just drinking his life away. You know, I love the expansion of like the Shining abilities. I love the True Knots. Rebecca Ferguson as Rose stole the show, but also Ewan McGregor was really good in the movie. There's a lot of great moments that I remember, a lot of great visuals, a lot of good sequences. There's one sequence in general, the sequence with Jacob Tremblay, that just gets under your skin, man. That scene was brutal and just made me so uncomfortable while watching it. And just so many good creepy moments, some good subtle moments. And I love how Flanagan didn't try to imitate Stanley Kubrick. He wasn't trying to make a Stanley Kubrick movie. He was making a Mike Flanagan movie. Sure, there's some, you know, flares of Kubrick in there, some, you know, echoes of that, but it's still his movie through and through, and it's a worthy sequel and a really good horror film in its own right. Number 8. The highest grossing movie of all time, the biggest movie that people were looking forward to this year, of course, Avengers Endgame. The culmination of 22 movies and 11 years, the fact that this is as good as it is a miracle. Like, this movie should have been a mess. I think I said the same thing about Infinity War as well. Like, both those movies just should have been a mess and just muddled with too many characters and plot lines, but somehow the Russo brothers pulled it off. Like, this movie works so well, and it even has a time travel plot, which those can get so messy and screwed up, but this one, it works. Sure, if you really think about it, some stuff doesn't quite work, but everything else is so well done, from the characters and like the story in general. It's so engaging that you don't really care about the real tiny details of that stuff. You're able just to like move past it and just be engrossed in the story. This is one of the few times in the movie where the fan service was earned. It didn't feel like it was just throwing it at you, hoping you'll like it, like Rise of Skywalker. It just felt like everything was leading to this film, and it really felt like it was like rewarding you from following along on this journey. And so I love that. There's a lot of great moments like that in the movie. They're just so memorable. Like the whole final action sequence. I'm not a huge fan of big giant action sequences where huge armies are going at it, mostly because it's a lot of CGI mess. But that sequence, mainly the beginning where all the heroes come back and the Avengers assemble moments, it's just one of the most like badass moments in a comic book movie ever. And this is kind of like the big grand comic book movie, and it's worth it. Like it worked so well. Like I loved seeing all these characters come together, and it was a fitting end to a lot of the main storylines. And it was so well handled, and it felt like the right story decisions, if that makes sense. Again, like Rise of Skywalker, where like all the decisions made sense and felt like the natural progression and conclusion of this storyline. It all just came together so well. It's just such a fun, entertaining movie that is a 3-hour film that just flies by because of how fun it is. Number 7. I don't really know how to intro this one. The Lighthouse. This movie was just weird. This movie is just this bizarre little film that's so engaging because of all the elements coming together, like just the look of it, the black and white photography, which looked beautiful. I love that. The performances, my god. You know, you got Robert Pattinson in there, who's fantastic, and then you have Willem Dafoe. Jesus, like his like speeches he has in this movie and everything. Oh, just like the descent into madness with this movie. Of just these two guys just stuck on this island in this lighthouse for this amount of time and just slowly losing it, and just all the ridiculous things that happen, just from the mermaids to the seagulls. It's just this wacky, darkly comic experience. I think that's the best way to describe the movie, is that it's an experience. Robert Eggers is the director of the movie. He also did The Witch, another great movie, and just, Jesus, he's a good director. His direction in this movie was fantastic. Just the look of it and everything, just, crazy movie. That's all I have to say. Just definitely watch it. Just know that it's going to be something weird and a crazy experience. Number 6. A movie from the director of my favorite film of 2017, Logan, Ford vs. Ferrari. This is the fastest that 2.5 hours has ever gone by for me for a movie, because this movie did not feel like it was 2.5 hours at all. This movie just kept moving and moving. It was just a really great story, just really great characters. I mean, it's a true story, and it was just like so fascinating to watch. All the performances were great. Matt Damon is really good, but the best part was Christian Bale, who was incredible. He stole the show in this movie. I loved him in this movie, and the racing scenes were so like engaging. They're so well shot and well directed. Like I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time. It was just a very like well crafted story. Like it really handled the characters right and made you really care for them, because like in terms of this type of movie, it's not the most like unique story in a way, if that makes any sense. It's not the most like freshest movie. It does hit certain plot beats that you've seen before and stuff, but it's just the way it executes them and the way it tells the story, the way the characters interact with each other, the way it makes you care for them. That's what made it so engaging, and that's how you know a movie's good, if it's on a subject that you don't really care about, like racing and cars, which I'm not really a big fan of. Like I don't really care about it, but I loved it. Like I was engrossed the whole time. It was just a fantastic, like well executed movie. Number 5. Even though Endgame was like the biggest comic book movie, probably the most talked about one was the smallest one, and that is Joker. Just get it right off the bat, the thing that everybody knows and that everybody's talking about. Joaquin Phoenix just is amazing in this film, just incredible. Like, he really carries the movie because he's in every scene of it. It's his story, you know? And so he does an amazing job just descending into madness. Like, I loved it. I loved, like, the moments where he really does capture the Joker and everything. I loved that stuff. I just love the way this movie was put together. The way it's just this, like, gritty 70s Taxi Driver-esque movie. And I know a lot of people like don't like that. It kind of like lifts a lot of stuff from like Taxi Driver and King Comedy and stuff. And I get that. I totally understand. But I thought it was just all well executed to where like it didn't really bother me too much. And once you get to that third act, like that third act like was really intense, and I was just kind of like, I don't know what he's gonna do, like what's gonna happen next, like what kind of chaos is he gonna cause. So I love that third act. It was fantastic, and I just like the way the movie was just kind of this like psychological character study. Like I thought it was just really well acted, really well directed, just intense when it wanted to be, and just like uncomfortable in other times. Just a really good movie. Number 4. Where has this version of Adam Sandler been hiding all this time? Because, my God, Uncut Gems is an intense movie. I like to call this movie Stress the Movie, because the movie is like 2 hours and 14 minutes long, and it just never stops moving. It's just constantly speeding through all the stuff, and just like Adam Sandler just constantly like making these deals, doing this stuff, getting this money, getting attacked, and just the way like those scenes where he's like talking to people, like when he's talking to like Kevin Garnett, and Kevin Garnett's trying to buy the opal from him, and he's like, no, it's not for sale, and like they're not listening to him, or when he's trying to get the opal back and everything, and no one's listening to him. It's just like, just stressful, my God. And this movie, like I said, Adam Sandler, amazing. One of the best performances of the year, Adam Sandler. Like, I would never have expected this from him, and I wish he would do more movies like this. His performance is so good that you don't know if you should root for him or not, because he is like this kind of sleazy like type of guy who's even cheating on his wife and everything, but you almost want him to succeed. You almost like want everything to go well for him, want everything to work out. You know, there are certain moments where you hate him, when you're like, don't do that. And the direction is fantastic. The Safdie brothers, who did Good Time, which is a really good movie, are just fantastic directors. And just like the way the movie is just shot with this frantic energy and everything. I love the music. The music score is also fantastic. I just love this movie, from like I said, the great performances from the entire cast, to just the direction, to the story, to just the like intensity, like stressed outness of it. It just all works, and it's just like an incredible film. Number 3. It's a comedy about Nazis. Jojo Rabbit. Now, I was really looking forward to this movie because I love Taika Waititi as a writer and director. I love the New Zealand style of humor that he has. It's just hilarious. But I wasn't expecting to love this movie as much as I did. Like, when it ended, I just sat there, I'm like, yeah, I love this B-movie. Like, it blends all these different tones, and somehow they mesh together perfectly. It's funny, it's charming and heartwarming, but it's also heartbreaking, and there's some, like, serious stuff that the movie deals with, but it all works. It doesn't like get too bogged down in some of it, and it doesn't feel like out of place. It all comes together. It's a really just good movie with a really nice message about like anti-hate, with some great performances. The main kid who plays Jojo, like holy crap, that kid's going places. The fact that he basically carries the movie, you know? He is like the main element of it is insane. Taika Waititi is hilarious as the imaginary Hitler. Sam Rockwell is great. And then you have Scarlett Johansson, who's fantastic as Jojo's mother. The way they were able to take like that era, like that point in time where the Germans and how they would like describe Jewish people, and how it was so exaggerated and over the top, and use that to kind of like tell a story about like anti-hate and everything, I thought was really cleverly done. I loved all of that. There is one moment in the movie that is, like I said, heartbreaking and just like, holy crap. And the way it was executed, the way like it was shot, was like, geez, like that hits. Like, I was not expecting that. And it was just a fantastic movie, just so funny. There's a lot of great moments, and like the way it kind of basically makes fun of Nazis in that time, I thought was really well handled and just hilarious. I thought the way it blended everything, it was really funny, it was really heartwarming and heartbreaking, and just very memorable. There's a lot of just memorable moments from it that I love. It's just a great film. Number 2. The movie that was kind of announced as like a movie about Charles Manson, but turned into something very different. But I love what we got. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now this was a movie that really grew on me because I remember walking out of the theater and being like, you know what, yeah, I really like that, but it wasn't as great as I thought it'd be. But then I found myself like over the next few days just thinking about it like every day afterwards. And I remember because I left, like I went on vacation like the day after seeing it. And I remember just on vacation every day being like, when I get back, I want to see that again. And like, I love the music. I love just the leisurely stroll through 1969 Hollywood. And I think that was the thing that kind of bugged me when I first saw the movie, is that it doesn't have much of a plot. And, you know, when you go into this movie, you're not expecting that, you're kind of thrown off. You're like, alright, like, where is this going? But after seeing it, I've come to, like, appreciate that more, and I really like that. And, like, I love the music, like I said, just the soundtrack for this movie. I've been listening to it constantly since I saw the movie. I love the music in here. All the performances are fantastic, especially Brad Pitt's. I've always liked Brad Pitt, so he's a solid actor, but like I wasn't expecting him to be as great as he was in here. Like this, I loved him in this movie, and I was kind of surprised by that. Like I've always liked him, but this movie I loved him in here. He was the best part of it. Just so great. So many great moments in it, like of course the ending, which is just insanity. But aside from the ending, like there's just a lot of great sequences in here that are very memorable. Great classic Tarantino dialogue. And sure, the movie does get a little self-indulgent at times. There's a lot of moments where it's Tarantino being like, look at how cool I can recreate the 60s, look at how great I am. But I like a lot of that stuff because it's just like, it's just fun to be in that world. And the way he recreates it so perfectly, like using real sets, the fact that he really closed down a street and just redesigned it to look like the 60s, it just really shows in the film. Like, it really feels like you're there in that era. Like, I know there's been rumors of them turning it into like a little miniseries on Netflix like they did with The Hateful Eight, and I would really love to see that if they did, because I just want to see more of this world. I don't want to say world because like it's a real time and place, but I think you know what I mean. I want to see more of that, and I don't know about, like I said, I don't really know how to explain why I love the movie so much, but the more I think about it, the better it gets. Number 1, a movie many years in the making that I've just been waiting for, and the fact that it finally happened and was as good as it was is just so great. The Irishman. So what can I say about this movie? From the direction, like Martin Scorsese, he's a master. He's my favorite director working today. Just incredible. To the performances, like Robert De Niro, who I feel is very underappreciated with this movie. I feel like most people keep talking about the rest of the cast, but he is incredible in here, and just the range he has to go through playing all these different eras of this person was so good. To Al Pacino just having a blast as Jimmy Hoffa, I loved him. To Joe Pesci just being back. I mean, come on, Joe Pesci coming back is amazing, and I loved his performance in there because it's so different from his usual type of role. He's not the hot-headed, like, wild guy. He's this more subdued, you know, more kind of quieter role. And the thing is, it's just as good. Like, he brings so much weight to the performance. Like, he is fantastic in the movie. I loved it. I love just the way this movie didn't play out like a typical mob movie. Like, you see, like, Scorsese, De Niro, Joe Pesci, mob movie. You think you know what you're gonna get, and you get elements of it. You get certain classic mob movie moments, but for the most part, the story it's telling is this much more mature, somber story. Like when you get to the third act of the film, and it's just so somber and sad and more reflective. It's a very reflective type of film, and that's what I really liked about it. It's these. You could tell it's from these filmmakers and actors who are at a later period in their lives, kind of looking back. And that's kind of what the story is about too. It's about this man late in his life looking back on, you know, what he went through. And I just thought it was so well handled, so good, so many great performances, so many great moments, really great writing. I'm glad they finally made it. I'm glad that Netflix let them make this movie, let them make it as long as they wanted. It was 3.5 hours, but that didn't matter. It was still entertaining for every minute of it. And it's such a great film. So yeah, that's all my favorite movies of 2019. A pretty dang good year for movies. There's a lot of really good stuff that came out here, and I can't wait to see what 2020 brings us. So, until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.